Good evening and welcome to our latest in conversation from Exeter Library. And this evening we've not got one author, we've not got two authors, or three, we have four. So welcome to Holly Hepburn, Claire Frost, Heidi Swain and Sharon Gosling. And thank you to SJ at Simon & Schuster for organising this event this evening. These events are free, but if you would like to give a donation to Libraries Unlimited, which is the charity that runs the 54 libraries and mobile libraries in Devon and Torbay, there is a link in the chat. We are also posting to over 20 libraries from Ottery St Mary to Oakhampton this evening. And so hi to everybody who's watching from there. And if you'd like to ask a question, please pop in the Exeter Library Facebook chat and I will ask the ladies as we go along. So firstly, introductions. So I'm going to go from my notes because I wasn't sure which order you would be looking at on the screen. So firstly, Claire. So Claire Frost grew up in Manchester and is the middle of three sisters. I'm the eldest of three sisters. She always wanted to do a job that involved writing. So after studying classics at Bristol University, she started working on magazines. And for the last 10 years, she's been at The Sun on Sun's Fabulous magazine, where she is the assistant editor and also responsible for the title book reviews. She can be mostly found at her desk, buried under a teetering TBR pile, to be read pile, which I think we all know what they are. And her first book, Living My Best Life, was published in 2019. So I hope that's all right, Claire. I hope that's all correct. So next up is Sharon. And Sharon lives in a remote village in northern Cumbria, where they moved to run a secondhand bookshop with Nell in Penrith, and she began her career in entertainment journalism, writing for magazines and in science fiction and the fantasy genre, before moving on to write tie-in books for TV shows such as Stargate and the reimagined Battlestar Galactica. She has also written and produced and directed audio dramas in the same genre, and when she's not writing, she creates beautiful lino-cut artwork and is the author of multiple children's books, and The House Beneath the Cliffs is her first adult novel. And then next is Holly. So Holly is the much loved author of commercial women's fiction. She lives near London with her grey tabby cat Portia, and they both have an unhealthy obsession with Marmite. Well, I can go for that one. And Heidi. So Heidi lives in Norfolk with her husband and two allegedly grown-up children and another cat called Storm. She loves gardening, the countryside, and collects vintage paraphernalia. So that's the authors, and welcome to you all, and thank you so much for coming along to our first in conversation for four authors. And I thought we'd just start with having a little sort of round robin of what your latest books are, and because you've all got ones that have recently come out or are just about to come out. So shall we start? If I start up in my top screen is Sharon. So Sharon, your book is due out on the 29th of April, unless it's moved.
It has actually moved. It's moved to August now. So it's right. A very summary book, but perfect. So it's August the 19th, it'll be out. Yeah. It's called The House Beneath the Cliffs. And it's about Anna, who's a chef who lived in London and was in a not good relationship, and that finally ended, and she decides to have a fresh start, and she moves to a very, very tiny village in Scotland called Crivy. And when she gets there, she kind of buys this place impulsively, gets there and realizes it's basically a shed, thinks she's not going to stay. But it's about the story of how she kind of finds herself amongst this community and learns the community in the area and regains her love of cooking, and living in this kind of very inaccessible place. Yeah, throughout the course of a summer, how she finds herself again, really.
Fantastic. And next we'll go to Heidi.
Okay, I just happen to have a copy of the book.
Have you got a copy of yours yet, Sharon?
I've got an ARC. I've got a proof copy, so I haven't got a full copy. It hasn't got the lovely cover on it yet.
I've got yours on NetGalley, so I couldn't waive yours either. So yeah, we'll get everybody to get theirs in. So Heidi, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I'm showing off then, but it's out a week on Thursday, so all the copies have now arrived. So A Taste of Home is the 8th title, unbelievably, in the Wimbridge series, and it's years since we've been back in the summer. So this is a summer story. And it starts in Italy, in Puglia, so you can kind of tell that I was fantasizing a bit when I was thinking about trying to get out of the house during lockdown. And it's about a young woman called Fliss Brown, who has been born and raised in Italy. She's been living with her mum and the Rossi family, who own a fruit farm. And at the beginning of the book, her mum sadly dies, and Fliss discovers that she has long lost family over in England on the outskirts of Wimbridge. So she makes the decision to come to England and get to know her new family. And she has a couple of guys who she also gets to know. It won't be one of my books without some love interests in there. But there's lots of family, there's lots of friendship, establishing relationships. She's got to sort of establish a new life for herself, and it's a really exciting journey that we go on with Fliss.
And food, because I'm actually on the blog tour, so I had the recipe for the
cherry and almond tart recipe. Yeah, Nonna Rossi's favourite
recipe. That looks really good. Yeah.
That's going to be great. And there are lots of strawberries in there, so I've drawn sort of a lot of inspiration from my childhood when I spent strawberry picking for weeks for my granddad. So yeah, I'm hoping people are going to find it a feast for the brain and a feast for the tummy too.
It sounds fabulous. So next up is Holly.
Okay, well, I'm going to be a little bit greedy actually, because I have 2 books that I want to do.
Oh, that's okay, that's fine, we'll allow that.
Thank you. So first of all, I just have to have a copy here as well. This is Coming Home to Brightwater Bay, which actually came out in January. So this is my most recent paperback. And this is about a burned out author who is pretty much at her lowest ebb. And she sees an advert for a 6-month writer in residency scheme on Orkney. So she abandons London, heads off to Orkney, gets on the world's smallest plane to fly over to the islands. And she doesn't really know what to expect, other than she just wants to try and rediscover her love of writing, because she's got writer's block. So she kind of discovers this amazing community there. My books are always kind of about community. And learns a lot about the islands that she didn't know, and just can't say whether or not she rediscovers her love of writing, because I don't want to spoil it for everyone, but she certainly discovers an extremely hot Viking on the islands, and a really sexy librarian as well. So I wrote this entire book without ever having been to Orkney, so I'm definitely going to remedy that this summer. So that's Coming Home to Brightwater Bay. And then I have a new ebook coming out on the 6th of May, which is a new series. All my books come out in 4 parts in ebook novellas, and then we switch them back. So The Little Shop of Hidden Treasures, part 1, is out on the 6th of May, and that's set in York, about someone who's come back to York, having been away from home, from the city for a long time, to get over the loss of her husband, and just to reconnect with her family in an antique shop. Nice. So that's what I've got going on at the moment.
Yeah, I did. We'll come back to it later, but I did really like the librarian, obviously. I like the librarian connection.
I bet.
And last but definitely not least is lovely Claire. So Claire, would you like to tell us about your latest book?
Thank you. I just happen to have a copy here as well.
Oh, well, that's great.
My second novel is called Married at First Swipe, and it's about 2 best friends. It's about Hannah, who is she spent all of her 20s traveling South America, living her best life, not having any responsibilities. And she gets home and she's in her 30s and she's thinking, oh, everyone around me settling down, maybe I kind of want to put down some roots and also find someone to put down those roots with as well. And she starts working for her best friend Jess on her dating app. And Jess has been working on this dating app for the last few years. She's got this seemingly perfect life with her husband in her lovely home with their 8-year-old twins. And she, from the outside, she's very happy, but actually kind of beneath the surface, things aren't as happy as they might be. And kind of seeing Hannah, and her exciting life means Jess is a bit like, oh, maybe I want a bit of that. Plus, her dating app is not doing so well. It's kind of starting to fail and the bank are getting a bit antsy. So when Hannah finds that out, Hannah says, oh, okay, well, I've got an idea. Maybe I'll be the poster girl for your app. So what we'll do is, to show that your dating app really works, what we'll do is you set me up on a blind date with someone, with a man from the app, and to kind of raise the stakes, the first time I meet this man is going to be at the altar. So that's the plan. And then you think, what could possibly
I was going to say, what could go wrong?
And it might be slightly influenced by my lockdown love, that is, which, you know, could be that I spent a long time watching that programme and went, oh, maybe I'll write a book about this. So yeah, that's my book.
That's because when I read the book, I still have not watched Married at First Sight, although I have seen things in the paper about it, about these people who have no idea who they are, going off shopping, and it's so and so and so and so going shopping, and they're on. So I think maybe I'll have to watch it one day. But yeah, I don't really do reality TV, but maybe I'll just have to force myself one day.
This is one you definitely should do. It's an education, and you'll soon start caring about who these people are and why they're going shopping.
So the questions are coming in thick and fast, so I will do some of those first before I do mine. I've got a title idea for Heidi from Lindsay, who says white lace and wedding bells.
Oh, now this could be carrying on from a conversation that we had earlier in the week about the fact that I haven't yet written a wedding into any of my books. So yeah, I'm going to make a note of that. I've got post-its at the ready, so I'll write that down. Thank you, Lindsay. That's a great idea.
So a question from Joanne, and she said, you all have great locations in your book, and actually this was a sort of a similar one that I was going to ask you. Now that lockdown is finally easing, where would be your ideal ideal holiday getaway? So who wants to go first? To be honest, I'd go anywhere at the moment.
Yeah, I quite fancy just heading off to the seaside. It's been ages since I've been to the coast, and of course had a book out last year that was set at the seaside. So yeah, somewhere like Wales next to the sea, a nice simple Norfolk coastal getaway would just be wonderful, especially with the weather we're having at the moment.
Definitely.
That's where I want to go, Norfolk coast.
Norfolk coast.
I was lucky enough actually to go to where my book is set in a village that actually exists, Crivy up in Scotland, and when I was editing was just in between the two lockdowns at the end of last year, so I was able to go and stay in Crivy, and it's one of my favourite places, so I'd be perfectly happy to go back there and sit in the bay and watch the fishing trawlers pass by and walk on the cliffs. That would be lovely. So yes, yeah, seaside for me as well, Heidi, I think.
2 seasides.
Yeah.
I'd like to go to St Lucia because that's where there is a honeymoon in this book, and St Lucia, and I have never been to St Lucia, and sadly I thought, I don't know if I can expense that really as a so in one day I'll get to go and live the honeymoon that my couple have.
Nice. That one's a bit more exotic.
Much more exotic.
But well, still sea. Yes. And Holly?
Oh God, anywhere really. I'd really like to. I went to, just before lockdown began, I popped over to the south of France just for like a really quick weekend getaway, and I really wanted to go back, and then lockdown happened. So I'm dreaming of, there's a little medieval village on top of a very steep hill just outside Nice called Exeter, and it's just amazing. I think I walked up there, had a look around, came down, thought I'm definitely going to come back here because I want to set a book here, and yeah, I haven't had the chance to go back, so that's where I'd go to Nice, then I'd pop along to Exeter and work out where I'm going to put my restaurant and all of my characters.
Fantastic. That sounds great. So sort of leading on from that question was one that I had. So you all write about sort of life and escaping maybe from yourself, sometimes from other people, and lots of people will probably use your books, particularly at the moment, to sort of escape their own lives. Is that important for you when you're writing, to sort of have that sort of escapist element, or, you know, a sort of to give people a different opportunity to look at other people's lives?
Well, it is for me. It's definitely something that I've got my eye on, especially when I was writing about Orkney. I mean, it was an escape for me to write it, because I was writing, I think, part 4, maybe part 3 and part 4, I can't remember, during lockdown, the first lockdown. And it was a real pleasure for me to go to Orkney where there was no COVID. I mean, there is no COVID on Orkney anyway, because they've been very clever and kept away from the rest of us. But in my story world, COVID didn't even exist. And so it was a real escape for me to write it. And I kind of came out of writing the story and went, oh. So I'm very happy that people say, oh, I feel like I've actually been to Orkney. I feel like I've been to the islands, and got away from reality. So yeah, I love that aspect of all of our books. That's
great. Heidi, I mean, particularly Heidi's Wimbridge, I've been to on a number of occasions, and I read the Seaside, is it Seaside Escape?
Seaside Escape, yeah.
I read that just as we went into lockdown last March, and it was just, you know, I think it was sort of beginning of April. Did it come out beginning of April?
Yeah, we changed the publication date. It was supposed to come out at the end of April, and then lots of publishers were putting their dates for releases back, and there was a slot on the 16th. And I had a chat with the publishing team, and they said, right, what do you think? Shall we just go for it? And yeah, and having a book out last year with the word escape in the title and seaside in the title, it was a gift, really. Obviously, we didn't know that was going to happen. But being aware of books being such an escape, I didn't really take that on board until I'd written the first few. And then the messages started to come in, and people are always very willing to share their experiences privately with you. And yeah, and you kind of start to realise just what a difference the books can make, and people might have changed something in their life, or they've started doing something that they've wanted to do for a long time that they haven't before. And so as the more books I write, the more aware I am of that. And I am finding now that most days on social media, somebody is saying to me, this book really helped me through lockdown. I could completely imagine that I was there for a while. And that's really humbling. It's a lovely thing to be told.
I think you're right. I think it is really humbling, and I think we're really lucky as authors that we not only get, as Holly said, you get to kind of write yourself into a different place, but also you get to take other people into that different place as well. And even and basically, as we've said, that with lockdown, I think it's more important than ever that, you know, the last years, lots of people found reading a real kind of balm with, you know, with all the lockdown, all the uncertainty, and, you know, obviously like sales of books have gone up, and that can only be a good thing. And to know that, you know, we're a small part of that, and help, even if it's just giving someone pleasure for a couple of hours away from all the awful thing, you know, all the general things going on in life. I think that's a really powerful and special thing.
Definitely. Reading and writing has always been a huge escape for me, both activities. And so, yeah, I think being able to write this book, certainly edit this book during lockdown, was a huge escape for me. So if I've been able to give that to someone else as well as they're reading, that's a great thing. It's a really lovely thing to be able to do, I think.
Well, definitely. You're all the questions. I've got so many questions. You are very popular, ladies, I can tell you. So I'm going to go through a couple more of what's on. So I've got one from Linda, who says that what is each of what is each of the authors' taste of home, their signature dish that they would serve up to their friends and family? So another food one.
Well, I've been mad for rhubarb and apple crumble the last few weeks. I've been sharing that all over Twitter. I have even shared the recipe online. Rhubarb and apple crumble and cooking the fruit in honey, and that has just been absolutely delicious. So yeah, I think a nice crumble with some cream and a nice cup of tea in the garden, now the weather's, you know, slightly improved, that would have to be my thing, I think, at this time of year anyway.
Mine would be some kind of pavlova. I love making meringue, so I made a strawberry pavlova at the weekend. I haven't shared a photo of it yet, so I will do that after we finish chatting over on Twitter. But yeah, anything sweet for me. I think I'm coming out of the comfort food time of year and more into something that reflects hopefully the gorgeous summer that we're going to have ahead. So yeah, strawberry pavlova, with delicate cream and maybe a strawberry coulis drizzled over the top.
Oh, nice. You're making me hungry.
I'd come to your house, Holly, please.
Yeah, I think we'll all be round.
I think there'd probably be a more alcoholic to So I think Aperol Spritz is all round in the garden. Nothing says summer like Aperol Spritz, basically. And I feel like just looking at that drink with its kind of like bright orange ridiculousness just makes me happy. And spreading that happiness to a group of friends in the garden kind of is perfect.
I'm a big baker. Before COVID happened, I was one of my day jobs was as a baker in a cafe, and I love doing afternoon teas. I love all the prettiness, and actually I made a batch of macarons before today. I've been trying to perfect the whole macaron and get it right. So lemon and raspberry macarons made with the raspberry coulis was made with raspberries from my allotment from last year. So I think I'd probably do an afternoon tea and invite everyone round for the first time in ages, and do a big layer cake and macarons and finger sandwiches and all those lovely things with some fizz as well. That would be good.
It sort of fits into the whole sort of escapism thing as well, doesn't it? Sort of the food and and being able to get back together and sort of sharing. It's sort of, yeah, it's sharing books, sharing food, sharing drinks. It's just, I think it's all what we're really looking forward to, isn't it? So Serena has asked that you all have beautiful covers for your books, and she said they look like they definitely would appeal to women. Do you think your books would appeal to men as well? And do you have many male readers?
Yeah, I have quite a few actually who get in touch. I've got one who's a friend of my husband's, and he's a big burly lorry driver, and he loves to take the books off with him when he's long distance traveling. So quite a few men actually read the books, which has been a revelation, because I can appreciate what she's saying about the covers looking more appealing to women perhaps, but yeah, guys definitely read them.
Yeah, I can only echo that. I've had a few guys get in touch via Twitter and say that they read all the books, big fans, love the stories. So yeah, same really. I do think predominantly I've got women readers, but there are a growing number of men out there. So yeah, it's great.
I totally agree, but I also think when we write our books, we don't necessarily write with one person in mind. I think it's like the book we want to write and hope that people, whoever they are, enjoy it. And yes, I think it's right that it does appeal to a certain market, because your cover has to kind of appeal to, you can't be too mass. You kind of want to kind of target people. But it's so nice when you get loads of different types of people reading your books. I think that's a really special thing as well.
My husband has read this one, so that's a good sign. But I'm not sure if any other men have read it so far. But I would hope that it would appeal. It would have aspects that would appeal to, as Claire said, you don't write for a specific.
No.
Really widen it out if you can. So
good. Right, so I'll go back to my questions now, and we'll see which other ones come in. So place is very important in your novels, and some of you have returned to sort of fictional settings like Windbridge and Brightwater Bay, and then you've also got Orkney, and did you say it was pronounced Crovie?
It's pronounced Crivy. It's spelled
Crivy, yeah.
Crovie, but it's pronounced Crivy, yeah.
How important is that sort of sense of place and sort of getting that in your novels? It feels like it's important, but is it sort of, when you start writing, is that sort of very much where you start?
I think for me, it's definitely place is key, really. Often it comes before anything else, especially if I'm setting something somewhere specific. And in fact, that coast of Scotland, the house beneath the cliffs of the title was what inspired the entire story. It was a tiny shed that I realized someone was living in. I was like, that's amazing, I would live there. I need to write a story about that, and everything else grew up from that, but it was on that specific coast. So yeah, setting's really, really important for me, and I really work hard or try to recreate that for the reader, what it's like to enter it for the first time and what it's like to spend time there. So yeah, setting's paramount for me, really. Yeah,
I think certainly when more so in Brightwater Bay, I think, than any other book. I mean, place is very important as well as the sense of community that I have in all my books. but for Brightwater Bay, so many people have said it felt like, first of all, it's made them want to go to Orkney. And second of all, it felt like Orkney was actually a character in the book. I spent an awful lot of time on Google Maps looking at places and imagining how it would be to stand there and sort of on street map as well, street view as well, sort of putting myself where my characters stand and looking around, seeing what they hopefully would be able to see to faithfully recreate this amazing place. So for me, the biggest compliment has been, well, there's two parts to it. People saying that they're going to go on holiday to Orkney because I've made them want to go, and saying that they really felt like it was an inescapable part of the book, that the book couldn't have been set anywhere else. It had to have been set there in order to create the story and make the story come to life. So yeah, I try really hard as well, make it work.
Yeah, I didn't, when I first wrote the Cherry Tree Cafe, which was set in Wimbridge, that's the first book I had published, I had no idea that we would be sort of going back there eight times and creating a couple of other places as well. And yeah, the setting is very, very important, and people have a very strong attachment to certain things, you know, and certain places. And I know that, like around the Market Square, they could walk around it with me. They know what shops are where and who's working where. And there are those really, really strong connections. And I often find that once I have decided where I'm going to set the next book, because now I've got 3 different places to choose from, it's the setting quite often that will come to me before the character, and then I will work out why that person is there and what their story is. But it's that sense of place that really pulls me in to begin with.
I think I'm quite different actually, because for me, sense of place isn't such a big thing. Married at First Swipe is set in Manchester, which is where I'm from originally. So that actually writing about Manchester and especially during lockdown when I couldn't be there and being up to see my family was actually really lovely. For me, plot is kind of what really drives me. That's the kind of starting point for me. And place is a kind of lesser part of it. But it's so interesting to hear different authors and everyone coming at things in a really different way. I love listening to people kind of, and I think Holly's really, really right that in some books, place is a character, and I think that's really true for Heidi as well. And you know, it is it's a huge part of those books. But yeah, it definitely makes me think, oh, I want to set a book in Orkney. I want to be a village.
I really like that it's different, that we've got that sort of difference, because I think it is it does sort of give us a really good conversation. But actually it's really interesting to see how other people write and how it sort of progresses from, you know, obviously plot being really important to some people are really character driven, some people are really setting driven. So yeah, so I always find it fascinating to find out how people start writing. I've got one from the lovely Saba saying, hi, all, you're all looking fabulous. So who would you cast in a Netflix adaptation of your latest book?
I'm going to answer this while everyone's thinking about this. When my first reader, one of my very closest friends, Polly, is usually my first reader for anything, and she read this and she said that she immediately thought of Anna as being Claire Goose, which I would also like, because then it would be Goose and Gosling. That would be brilliant. But yeah, and now that's what, when I was working on it further, I was like, oh yeah, so I would be very happy with that. She's a wonderful actress, and she definitely fits the character, I think.
I have someone in mind, so you guys answer, and I'm just going to try and remember what his name is, because I haven't been on Instagram for about 5 months. So you carry on and I'll just remind myself.
You know, I find this an impossible question to answer, because I never imagine anybody in the role.
You're not the first person to say that. Somebody else said that to me the other day when I was interviewing them. It was James Oswald, and he got the Tony McClane series, and he said, I don't think of it. I just can't. I don't know what he looks like.
No, it's, you know, I know what they look like in my head, but I couldn't put an actor or an actress there to sort of fit the bill. Although interestingly, when I wrote The Winter Garden, we had a very hunky Viking guy called Finn. And I had a bit of Googling going on, because I wanted to think about braiding down this guy's long hair. And so I had this image of this chap, which of course I had to then have as a screensaver on my laptop. And when the book came out, a surprising number of women got in touch and said, oh, I've had a Google, is this the guy? Is this the guy who you imagine is Finn? And yeah, it was him. So that was quite interesting. But I think he was just the model. I don't think he was an actor or anything. So yeah, an impossible question to answer. I'm sorry, that's a bit useless, really.
But that sounds like you had some good fun Googling, Heidi.
Exactly,
Always,
yes. Yeah.
Always.
And you've got a nice screensaver, so, you know.
Exactly.
I think I feel similarly, that I don't really think of celebs, like I don't have those pictures of celebs. I have a kind of picture of my character who is just in, I don't know, more normal person, I guess. But I think for Hannah, who's kind of that person who lives her life on the edge and is really fun and daring, I think someone like Jenna Coleman would be good as well. She's got a bit of a northern accent. She's a bit, I don't know, maybe someone like that, I would say.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see her in that. So I've got a quick fire question round. I did one each for you, so we'll do those quickly, and then we'll go through some others. So Heidi, you're up first.
Okay.
So you often have themes in your book, and cooking features strongly in a lot of them. So are you a keen cook?
Yes, I'm a keen cook. I wouldn't say I'm a good cook, but yes. Yeah, keen cook. Comfort foods are really my thing. Stews and puddings and pies, that sort of thing.
Sounds
but
good.
I would say I'm keen rather than accomplished, I would say.
That's perfectly fine. I think, keen is just great. So Claire, so your books are very contemporary, and so Living My Best Life is set sort of around Instagram and influencer, and Married at First Swipe, as you said, is about a dating app. Do you find the sort of our addiction to social media and the internet sort of fascinating, and sort of really sort of draws you in to think in the same way that other people sort of might do the setting, but that's your sort of way in?
That's really true, actually. You're right. In a way, social media is a bit of a character in my books. Yes, I think it might be slightly fueled by my worry that I spend far too long scrolling social media.
Don't we all?
Exactly. I think for ages I kind of was like, oh no, I'm not going to do it, and then I totally did. And I think I think also I feel like I live quite a lot of my life on social media, and I know lots of people only through social media and things like that, and I think I'm really interested in our relationship with people in real life compared to on social media, and all of that kind of, I think it's really interesting, and it's part of our lives, and it's part of pretty much everyone's lives in some form or other, and it's here to stay, I think, in some form. So yes, I'm really interested in those relationships and how that all plays out when it comes to real life as well.
Fantastic. And Holly, so when Mary goes off to Orkney, she heads off to the library, and she becomes their writer in residence, which like I said, I absolutely loved. What sort of inspired you to have that sort of library connection? Was there anything that sort of drew you to the sort of library? Because she could have been a writer in residence anywhere really, but I was fascinated with the library connection.
Okay, so I have to thank Rowan Coleman for this, the author Rowan Coleman. She had been to Orkney and visited the library there, and there's also the Orkney Library is on Twitter as well, quite an active Twitter account. And so she'd been to Orkney, and she'd said to me, there's a really hot librarian at Orkney Library. You should have a think about that. And she was saying, you should set a book here, look at this picture and look at this picture that I've taken. And she was basically feeding all of my scenes and my character, telling me what I should write. And she wasn't responsible for my Viking. I'm going to come back to him because this is the actor book that I didn't answer before. But what's not to love? What is not to love about a sexy librarian? All the words, all the stories, super empathetic, and they love books. And this particular one looks a bit like Clark Kent with a megawatt smile. And I got to be honest, I did not know who Mary was going to end up with, whether she was going to end up with the hot Viking or the sexy librarian for a long time. And even now, I don't know if I would make the same choice that Mary makes.
You could have one of those books where you pick your own ending, you know, so you can either have him ends up with the sexy librarian, or she ends up with the sexy Viking.
Yeah, so. The readership is quite polarized, actually. The people who read it are like, well, I don't think she made the right choice. I'm like, well, you would have chosen someone else. I might have chosen someone else. I might have chosen the other one. But, you know, that was the right choice for her. And I'm very carefully not saying which one she chooses. But going back to the previous question that I didn't answer because I was too busy looking it up on my phone. There was the hot Viking. I did not know was going to be such a hot character. I thought he was going to be a slightly grubby, older Viking kind of guy who, and then she met him, and at the same time I was looking at, well, you know, I need to look up Viking beards because of course. So I was Googling Viking beards, and this guy called Lasse Matberg from Norway came up. Look him up because he's very fine. And looking at him, I was like, oh my God, he is going to be a much bigger character than I thought he was going to be. So he was actually a smaller character until I saw a picture of him, and then I'm like, oh, yeah. So yeah, sometimes real life can inspire your story writing as opposed to the other way around.
It's Heidi. So I think we've got a definite Viking theme going on here tonight, haven't we?
It's getting out of hand, isn't it, really?
Are there any sort of social media Vikings, do you know, Claire, that can maybe be in your next book?
Oh, but I'm happy to do a bit of scrolling to find out.
So Sharon, your next question is so The House Beneath the Cliffs is your first. So it's your first adult novel on the PR, but my husband is very supportive of my own conversations, but he's never been so excited as today when I told him that you wrote the tie-in novels for Battlestar Galactica and Stargate.
No, I didn't actually. They weren't novels.
Were they not novels? So they're not novels. They're just.
No, they're not novels. They're the official show guides, basically. Before the internet, I'm that old. Before the internet was a big thing, and you could get everything for free on Wikipedia. They would kind of publish guides that would go along with. So I edited the official magazines for the shows, and also produced the books as well. So yes, I haven't actually made stuff up for those shows.
Well, that was my next question. Is writing a tie-in very different to writing a novel because you don't have so much scope to use your own ideas?
And it is. I've done other tie-ins, like some children's tie-ins, and yes, it's very different because you have to stay very within the rules. I did a Captain Marvel origin story, and that's very complicated because it's so huge. And I did do some audio dramas that were based on that were fiction that were based on Stargate, and yeah, you have to be very aware of staying within the guidelines that the studios want. Yes, but they're a lot of fun. I mean, that's great just to get to play in someone else's paddling pool with characters that you've seen on screen, and especially with the audiobooks because it was the actors actually doing it. So I was like, okay, I'm writing for Michael Swain, I'm writing for Claudia Black, so that was great. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Right, I'm going to go back to some questions from the audience. So all of the books have some sort of fresh start for the characters. If the ladies had a fresh start and were no longer authors, what would they like to do instead? And that's from Linda. Lovely Linda Hill, who is a fellow blogger. I'm sure you're all aware of Linda.
Lovely Linda Hill. She is lovely, but that's another impossible question, isn't it? Gosh, because we're doing our dream job. Crikey.
I would go off travelling, I think, and just be a perpetual traveller and just put a. I loved the Salt Path, as painful as it was. I loved the idea of just living every day as that day and just keep going. And obviously I'd end up writing about it because that's what I do. I don't think we could ever escape that, whether or not we were being published or not. I think all of us would probably say we'd carry on writing anyway, actually. But yeah, I just keep walking.
Walking and writing.
Walking and writing, yeah.
I would like to be a belly dancer. It's completely out there. I've taken up belly dancing I started before everything went wrong. So I started, it's a fair summation of what's happened. I started in sort of November, December 2019, and then I was going into do drop-in sessions in Covent Garden, and I wasn't learning properly. I was just like going to this drop-in session and trying to follow the teacher, but not really knowing the techniques or anything. And in lockdown, the teacher took all her classes online. So I've been doing about 5 hours of belly dancing a week, being taught and practicing. So I think I might actually be getting somewhere now. So if this was a you can do anything you want scenario, yes, I would go and be a belly dancer.
Well, I didn't expect that one.
Yeah.
Belly dancing is in my next book as well. Just
I was going to say, yeah, I think after belly dancing, anything I say is be like, oh, dancing. I was going to say, I think I would be a gardener, just because I think lockdown has made our gardens, even those of us who are lucky enough to have gardens, even more of a kind of important space. And just seeing those bright coloured plants come up, like in the depths of February, my camellia came up and I was like, oh, you've literally saved the day in terms of making me happy, because you know nothing can kind of cheer you up like a big pink flower on a grey day, other than a Aperol spritz, obviously.
I love that, Claire. That's actually what I was going to say as well. I used to be a gardener before I became a full-time author, and yeah, I think I'd go back to that job because it was amazing. It's wonderful. It saved my mental health, my garden, over the last few months, and my early morning walks around the village have been fantastic. So yeah, I would go back to a job that is a little bit more outdoor based, I think.
Yeah, I love my garden. I haven't got a very big one, but like the tulips coming up in sort of February, and the daffodils, we get daffodils here in Devon in January, so it's been, yeah, I can completely get that. So great question.
It's slightly stressful actually for those of us who, I mean, I'm not new to gardening, but last year I started to grow tomato plants from seeds. And because I was so new to it, my friend said, yeah, just try out some cherry tomato seeds and put them in a pot and it'll be fine. You'll just have tomato plants at some point. Right, okay. Except that I planted probably about 100 accidentally because I wasn't expecting them all to grow. And then I've got like forests of tomato plants, and then now they're my tomato babies. So I have to look after them all. And my next door neighbour gave me some runner beans as well. And he said, just make sure the snails don't get them. So yeah, one night I found myself out in the garden at 9:30 picking up snails, which were like converging on my runner beans. It's so stressful. There's something very wrong with my life. I'm starting at snails at 9:30 in the evening. How did I get here? So it can be a bit stressful as well, gardening.
I think lockdown though has brought all types of challenges that probably, you know, we wouldn't have the time normally, because we'd be out at 9:30. We wouldn't be wandering around the garden looking for snails at 9:30 if we had anything else that we could do. Yes, that's funny. So I've got a message from Katrina, who says that she loves these author evenings, and Jill has agreed that she said it's one of the best things to come out of COVID. So we've certainly enjoyed doing them, and hope that they'll carry on, because, you know, to get 4 authors like you all together down in Devon is quite hard for us. So to get you all on screen is fantastic, and we'll definitely are very grateful for that. So I've got a question from Joy for Holly, who says, Holly, when your books are published in 4 parts, do you write it all before the first part is published?
No, I do not. In an ideal world, that is exactly how it would work. And I'm sure I give my editor absolute kittens, because no, I don't do it that way. I write each part maybe a couple of months before it actually comes out, which is actually really nice, because it means I can be reasonably current, and I can have, ordinarily when you write a book, you write it maybe a year before publication, maybe a little bit less. But I can be quite current with things that have happened and reflect them in my book in a way that I couldn't if I was writing a year ahead of publication, because whatever I wrote about, everyone would have forgotten about. So, you know, when we had all the storms that here I was able to pull those in and reflect actually what was happening in the UK at that time. So yeah, I don't write them all in advance, which gives me a bit of flexibility and means I can keep current.
Great. Right, I have got another question that's come in, and from Lindsay, who said, do any of you take photographs or create mood boards or use things for inspiration for your book, or all of them, or none of them?
I took a lot of photographs.
Oh,
sorry,
carry on, Sharon. Carry on. I do take the occasional photograph, and I think the one that I've taken that was most special was of an area in Norwich, which I could only see when I was on the top floor of the park and ride bus heading into the city. And there's a little kind of area which has got a village green in the middle. Well, it's smaller than a village green, but it's got railings around the outside and houses around it. And that became the inspiration for Nightingale Square. So it's not a particularly good picture because I took it from upstairs in a bus, but it's a very treasured one. Yeah, and I think, you know, when I'm out in different landscapes and things, I might take a picture as well that will inspire, say, some Wimbridge countryside or something like that. Yeah, but I did have Pinterest boards quite a while ago, but I couldn't keep up with it. It's quite, you know, writing 2 books a year, that would be a load of photographs and a lot of images and a lot of research. So yeah, just a few on my camera roll on my phone, really.
Sorry, Sharon, did you want to go next?
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, Crivy is just such a photogenic place. It's extraordinary because it's literally this ledge, very, very narrow ledge under a cliff. It doesn't have a road or anything through it. You have to walk through it. There's just one path that runs along the sea wall, and you can't. It's kind of impassable at high tide. So I took a lot of pictures of that because it's just such a fantastic place to look at. Also when I was up there editing, we went for a walk along the cliff, and I found a location that I thought I'd made up. And I was like, oh, that's the cove where, you know, I set a scene, but it actually exists, and there it is. So I took lots of pictures of that as well. It's quite nice when that happens. You think that you've made something up, but actually it was there all the time. So yeah, lots of pictures.
I think.
Go on, Claire. No. There was an awkward silence.
There was. I was waiting. I wasn't sure who was going to go next.
I was just going to say, instead of taking pictures, I tend to do. This is going to sound really weird. Do like word pictures instead. So I write myself notes on Post-it notes in my notebook that says basically like how I want the reader to feel at certain points, or just kind of prompts to myself. Veronica Henry tweeted a few weeks ago that she has a mantra basically, and it is JFGOWI, and it basically stands for just get on with it. And I have written that out on a post-it in my notebook, and for me it's the kind of much more like word thing rather than I don't know what that says about me exactly, but probably because there's, again, talking about social media being that kind of place more, and which is more words led maybe. I don't know. It's interesting though how different we all are in that.
Definitely.
So mine probably wouldn't, I mean, obviously with Orkney, I had a lot of photos sent through from friends, and so I used those as well as looking things up online. But I think my photos would tend more to be drinks. Certainly when I was writing the Star and Sixpence series, because it was set in a pub, I would always be on the lookout for interesting cocktails and try and recreate them at home or make my own cocktails. And when I went to the pub, I would always take photos of my drinks to put on social media. So I think it's probably more food and drink that I take pictures of, because they're quite important parts of my books as well, just so I can faithfully describe them and make the reader hungry.
I can confirm that Holly does that, actually, because we spent a very entertaining cocktail evening in London a couple of summers ago. And when I got home and looked through my camera roll on my phone, she'd certainly encouraged me, because it was just 4 cocktails.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. I can't wait to go out for a cocktail. I really can't.
Oh, they were wonderful. That gin one, Holly, can you remember?
I remember it very well, yes. Yes, that's SJ's speciality, organising publisher parties with amazing cocktails.
I've been to a virtual one of SJ's virtual cocktail party, so I'm looking forward to maybe one day in real life being able to go to a real one. So. Yeah. Yeah. The time is, we've actually gone quite a lot over what we should have done, but that's fine as long as you're okay. So I'll just round it up and ask a couple final questions before we finish. So it's Well Book Night on Friday, so I was interested in what you like to read for pleasure, and also to say that well done to Heidi, because Sunshine and Sweet Peas at Nightingale Square is one of the books on the book list this year. So you must be delighted with that.
I'm thrilled, absolutely over the moon. Yeah, really excited about that.
So what do you like to read for pleasure, Claire?
Well, part of my job as a journalist, I look after all the book content on the magazine. So I have, as we said, the biggest TBR pack in the world. I have to put it at different places in the house because I can't have it all in one place because my partner.
You see behind me, that's just a fraction of the stuff that comes in there everywhere. My husband goes mad.
Exactly. That's why I have to kind of have different piles to pretend that it's not all one massive.
Yeah.
So I read really widely across loads of different genres, and because sometimes when I'm writing women's fiction, I find it difficult to then read a similar type feel book at the same time because it just gets a bit all in your head. So I love to read thrillers, as well as loads of, I've got so many, I could literally talk to you all night about all my favourite things. But I've just read Erin Kelly's new book, which is called Watch Her Fall, which is all about set in the world of ballet and kind of a bit of a Black Swan-esque book. And it's one of the best books I've read this year. Absolutely loved it.
I agree with that. It's amazing. I really loved it. Sharon?
I tend to read a lot of different things because I write children's fiction as well, so I read a lot of children's fiction. I read a lot of non-fiction about travel because I've just read Hudson Bay Bound, which is about 2,000 miles, two young women paddling 2,000 miles up the Hudson to Hudson Bay, which is amazing. And I'm currently reading Samantha Schreblin's book of short stories called Mouthful of Birds, which is very strange and wonderful. But I also love thrillers, and I love women's fiction as well. One of my favourite reads so far this year is Last Thing to Burn by Will Dean, which is
that's amazing.
It's a stunning book. So anything. The problem with having a bookshop is it's a little bit like having your own library. We have a very small house that is. You should have seen us the other day trying to fit one more bookcase in our house. This is the last room with no bookshelves on it, and at some point this year when he can come round, this will be covered in, and that's it. We don't have any more room. So TBR piles are a big issue.
They could become sort of some health and safety thing at some point. They're going to be like, well, there's going to be a thing on Twitter about how someone gets, enveloped by their TBR pile and they're never seen again. Holly?
Yeah, I read quite widely as well. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. It took me a long time to get into audiobooks, but I'm now fully immersed. For some books, I think I like a paperback. I don't really read digital editions, but some books I don't want the paperback. I want to listen to the audiobook because the narrator has become part of the story for me. So there's a series by Mick Herron which starts off with Slow Horses, and I think there's about 8 books, and that's Jackson Lamb is the main character, and it's going to be on TV soon. Because the actor who narrates it is so good, I have to listen to those in audiobook. I can't read them. And similarly, the Rivers of London series by Ben Aronovich, which is like supernatural. There's a secret supernatural department of the Met that deals with ghosts and vampires and stuff in London, which is just fab. And again, the actor who narrates them is just brilliant. So I've just finished listening to the latest novella by Ben Aronovich. And I've read The Outlaws Scarlet and Brown, which is a children's book by Jonathan Stroud, which came out a couple of weeks ago, which I just gobbled up in probably 2 evenings when I should have been doing other things. Just sat and read. It was lovely.
And Heidi?
Yeah, I read quite widely too, and I have to be fairly organised with it now because I get sent an awful lot of proofs. So I tend to read a proof if it's been, if I've been asked for a specific quote by a certain date, and then I might read a classic and then perhaps something historical. And I love the Ellie Griffiths Dr. Ruth Galloway series. I'm trying to eke them out and I keep revisiting my favourites. I love those. My favourite book that I've read so far this year, and the author's name has just completely gone out of my head, but it's The Reading List, which is set in a library, and it's about a list that is found, a list of books that is found in the back of a library book, and it
Antoine Laurent?
No, could be Sarah someone. I can't remember. It's really frustrating, but it's amazing, and it comes out in July, and it's just so wonderful how all these different books on the list bring the entire community together and the library together, and it's absolutely glorious. It's wonderful. So that's my favorite read of the year so far. But yeah, I do tend to read quite widely.
Well, it's been absolutely fantastic, and thank you so much for coming and joining us this evening. And I can't believe the time. It's SJ saying it's Nisha Adams.
Sarah Nisha Adams. Thank you,
Nisha Adams. That's it. Right. Yeah, sorry, Nisha.
Yeah.
So I thought she was saying it's Sarah and it's Nisha Adams, but it's not. It's Sarah Nisha Adams.
Yeah.
I will look that one up. That one sounds fantastic.
Oh, you must. It's wonderful.
There are some questions. I'm really sorry we haven't had a chance to answer everybody's, but I have tried to do as many as I can. But if the authors are on Facebook, they might want to have a look on the Exeter Library page and answer them, because there are some sort of individual ones as well. So if you do use Facebook, then please feel free to or pass them on to me and I'll answer them on your behalf. So our next in conversation is on Tuesday the 4th of May, and it's with Anna Sampson, and she'll be talking about her latest poetry anthology, Morning Feeds. No, I'm going to get it wrong, the wrong way round. I should have written it down. Night Feeds and Morning Songs. And I hope I've got that the right way round. I'm sorry, Anna, if I haven't. But all the details of our upcoming events are on our Facebook page, and if you enjoyed watching this event, please like our page and leave us feedback. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe to our page. If you would like to buy any of the books that we've discussed this evening, there is a link in the chat to our friends at Crediton Community Bookshop, which is now going to be called the Bookery, I believe, or you can order online via the Devon Library's website. So thank you so much, ladies, for joining us this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I am looking forward to reading what's coming next from you all, because I have read all of the books. So good luck to you, Sharon, with your new book coming out in August, and to all the rest of you for coming along this evening and being such wonderful interviewees. Thank you.
Thank you.